Welcome back to another session. I hope you were well. I would like to, in today's session, build on a conversation that I began in the prior session, during which I introduced a new topic to the conversation and to this series. We have covered 32 sessions so far, and in the 32 sessions, I had not addressed or brought to your attention this new topic. This topic has to do with where do we derive our energy from apart from food? We understand, and I hope you do, that energy comes as a byproduct of primarily the food we eat, which we convert in our bodies, and we have energy. The energy is delivered through an energy delivery system to the various parts of the body that need energy, and then we expend the energy. I've referred to this previously in several sessions about diet, food, your gut. But in yesterday's session, in the previous session I discussed and I dealt with the whole concept of energy being derived from a different source, light. I talked about a concept, and people who practice this concept are called breviarians. And these are people who do not eat food, but instead generate their energy from light. I also made reference to how light comes in contact with our body, our brain, and our muscles, our physical body, and works with the water in our body to create a battery-like effect that generates more energy and that supports the various parts of the body which derive their energy from food. The heart plays a huge role in circulating blood throughout the body. And that's how we've always, and how I have always believed that the body functioned. Until recently, when I started to explore and study, and I came across a concept by someone who I think has done much more within the sphere of biology to advance our understanding of water, Dr. Jared Pollock, in which he covered a concept called fourth phase water. The original idea came from someone called Gilbert Ling, but Gilbert Ling was not the first person who dealt with the issue. So William Hardy in 1912 made reference to the fact that water has a fourth phase. Now I digress and I'm jumping ahead of myself. If you have either an ailment or you're suffering from anxiety and depression, worry, I think one of the questions you will be asking yourself, and I hope you are asking yourself, is what does this have to do with depression? What does water and light and food have to do with depression? The answer is it serves as a building block. It serves as a foundation pillar. It serves as a cornerstone to your healing and your recovery. For most people, whilst depression might be a psychological issue, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. For some of us, the thoughts we think, the feelings we have, and therefore the lifestyle or behavior that we repeat, which become habitual, do not just spring out of the ether. Sometimes it comes from a reality around us. We've suffered either a loss, a physical loss. It might be we've come across an illness, cancer, dementia, depression is then linked to the suffering that we are experiencing in the physical. It could be an injury that causes you to go into a loop mindset where you default back to concern or worry, and that worry repeats itself, multiplies, and suddenly you find you're always in a state of anxiety. It could be something to do with your physical body, something you're not happy with, an injury, etc. The point being that sometimes the physical is a pathway, it's a link to what's going on in your mind. So if you treat your body like a temple, if you look after your body and you take good care of your body, you apply what we call a process of elimination. There is one less thing to worry about, and therefore it's easier for you to address whatever the mental or psychological matters might be. And so in the 32 sessions that I covered previously, the idea was to give you all the building blocks so that you can leave no stone unturned, that you can look at your life and apply the various principles, and at the end you can say, it's definitely not something physical. And then we can then move as we proceed into the sessions that follow, into the mental, into the intellectual, into the psychological aspects of depression. Fourth phase water is a concept. The concept simply, as introduced by Dr. Gerald Pollack, is as follows. Think about plants. We know that plants derive energy through a process. They absorb energy from the sun and they convert that energy, radiant energy, into some form of biological metabolic energy for the synthesize. The process is said to be, in many ways, without error. In other words, it's perhaps not the right word, but it's almost perfect. Dr. Gerald Pollack, through his studies, came across some convincing information that suggested that for many years we've understood water to occupy three stages: vapor, liquid, and solid. In the forms that we understand as people: gas, liquid, and maybe ice. And water can move between phases depending on how much energy we introduce or how much energy we remove from the process. But he discovered that there is a fourth phase, a phase that lies in between liquid and solid. And this occurs when we have water move from solid to liquid. There's an intermediate phase, an intermediary phase, before it gets to liquid, and also vice versa. But this phase is very different to liquid water. In the body, this phase is like a gel. It's said to be structured. It's also said to have a mechanism to how it functions. It's very different to bulk water or ordinary water. Ordinary water is unstructured, and you might say it has a charge that is neutral. On the other hand, fourth phase water is structured, it's negatively charged, it has multiple oxidation states, and it has a memory function. Now, memory function is something I hope I remember to address as we move forward. The point being that if you were to place the water aside next to each other, side by side, you would very quickly realize that they are not the same. H2O, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, is water as we know it, liquid water as we know it. You mix 2 parts of hydrogen with 1 part of oxygen, you get water. Hydrogen is positive, so it has a charge of +1. Oxygen is negative, it has a charge of -2. So 2 parts of hydrogen is +2, and you add that to 1 part of -2 oxygen, and you get a neutral charge. Fourth phase water, on the other hand, is H3O2. Slightly different. And as a result of that, it is negatively charged because as part of the process through light and the introduction of light, 1 hydrogen atom or molecule is discarded or pushed away. Therefore, H3O2. It's very different, structured. It has a crystal structure to it, and it has a gel-like. And the key part of this whole process is what happens, what water does when it's against the surface. I won't go into the technical details, but you can look at things such as gels or polymers or hydrophilic surfaces. What happens? What does water do when it's next to a particular surface? And what happens when light is introduced into that space? Well, what we are finding, what the research shows, is that water in that state, especially this will be water in your cells. And let me take a step back. About 2/3 of the muscle is water, but about 99% of all of the molecules in the muscle is water. If you were to look at the entire human being, we know that about 60% of all the cells are water, primarily, in the body, the cells are primarily surrounded by water. And because water in the body is negatively charged, or this special water that I'm calling fourth phase is negatively charged, about 60% of all the cells in the body are negatively charged by virtue of the water that surround them or that they are made of. If we then look at the extracellular part of the body, another 20% is negatively charged. So without going into the details, about 80% of the body is negatively charged. When we breathe out, when we urinate, and when we actually sweat, we are shedding and removing protons from the body, which increases the negative state of the body. So between 80 and 90% of the body is negatively charged, and that is by virtue of the type of water in the body. That charge drops if most of the water is bulk water. It increases in its negative charge if most of the water is fourth phase water. Now there is an oscillation between fourth phase and ordinary water. So in the muscles, most of the water is fourth phase. As you move your muscles, for whatever reason, if there's a call to action, the water is converted to ordinary water and then it returns back. So there is this oscillation between the type of water in your body from fourth phase to ordinary water. We increase the amount of fourth phase water, also called exclusion zone water, in the body. And we do that by virtue of infrared light. We also do that by virtue of placing the body in a state where we increase the negative charge in the body, or we increase the amount of oxygen we have in our body. And that promotes, facilitates, or expands the zone of exclusion zone water or fourth phase water. Fascinating stuff. I recommend, I'm not the best person to be sharing this knowledge. I think if you were to go and search for Dr. Gerald Pollack, he's written several books, Cells, Gels, and the Engines of Life, and fourth phase water. And he has a new book which is coming out called Charge. What you find is a better person, a more competent person, who can explain these concepts in a much more eloquent and a much more easy to understand way than I can. The reason I brought this into this whole conversation of depression is because I think it's profound. I actually believe that there is a correlation between the amount of fourth phase water you have in your body and the level of depression or negative state your body is in psychologically. And therefore, if you feel anxious and if you feel depressed, and if yours is physical, not mental, but physical, in other words, there's something about yourself you're not happy with, and that is creating a thought pattern that is cyclical, I think you can resolve most of it through fourth phase water and understanding how it works. Before the session is completed today, I'll share some ways on how you can actually achieve that. Now, a cell without easy water or fourth phase water will die. Now keep that in mind. A cell that is without easy water or fourth phase water will die. A cell that has very low fourth phase water or exclusion zone capabilities of water will start to fragment and malfunction. We know that cancer cells are those cells whereby when they drop to a level of charge that is so low, they split, they erode. We know that you can actually minimize cancer growth through EZ or EZ or fourth phase water. In many ways, you know, the words of the great writers from antiquities, when they talk about let the light shine in you, or open the windows and let the light shine in you, there was something about what they were saying that we are starting to understand. Fundamentally, there's something about light, which is life, and if that light shines in us and through us, it gives us an abundance of what we need to sustain ourselves. Ordinary water will nourish you, and it's what you need. It's a raw material for building easy water. But easy water in the body, in the right proportion, in the right quantity, is required in order for you to thrive. And therefore, if you want to minimize the risk of depression, anxiety, and worry, you need to think about how you can maximize your easy water or fourth phase water production. Now, in the same manner, you want to minimize anything you're doing that diminishes or decreases the amount of easy water, fourth phase water you have in the body. One of such ways will be what you eat. So we know from the research that has actually been done that glyphosate is one of the pernicious ways of destroying easy water, fourth phase water. We also know that there are certain remedies you can go through that allow you to create more or increase the amount of fourth phase water you have in your body. At least it might sound redundant. Let me just share some of these with you, and because I think they're profound. I also think they're profound because they're very easy. Now, many years ago, someone who was an inspiration and someone who was a mentor to me said something that I think I'd like to share with you, and I think it was profound. I had tried things to make success, whatever I called success at the time. I had tried desperately to achieve success. And the individual said that they had observed how I had lived, but they had come to a position where they could see that I wasn't necessarily achieving the outcomes that I wanted. And they said, well, you have to accept and you have to come to the place of peace with the fact that you have created the outcomes of your life. Your life is not predestined, and life doesn't occur as a matter of chance or happenstance, that there is a choice in the process, and my decisions decide my success and my outcomes. And that if I'm not happy with the outcomes I have, I should simply look at the person and the ability of the person making said decisions. So the advice was as follows. If you've done things the way you wanted to do, and you've come to a place where you cannot see meaningful results and meaningful outcomes as you desire, they said, why don't you try a different way? Try my way. Now recognize, I'm being advised, so I was being told to try their way. And the advice was try mine until you come to a place of recognizing that it doesn't work. But if you do try it and it works, then effectively it becomes like a scientific experiment. I've tried one way, it didn't work. I've tried another way, it works. Then if I can repeat it, which is a concept called replicability, if I can repeat it over time and improve on that, then the formula that I was applying initially should be discarded and the new formula should be embraced. But I should continue to improve and seek for better ways. In other words, the knowledge that I had at the time got me to where I was, and my inspiration, my mentor was saying, well, to get to the next stage, you need a new set of knowledge to take you to where you want to get to. And that is what I'm perhaps putting across to you as I share these ideas. If your way hasn't worked to the best of your hope, anxiety, depression is something you're struggling with, unhappiness, concern, perhaps you're not living the life you would want, your health is not at the optimal state. Now, I'm not suggesting mine is, but I'm simply saying I'm giving you a tool, and I'm hoping that you can look at it, understand the rules of the game and take the tools of the trade and apply them as you wish. But by applying them, you can allow yourself to look back and see whether there have been any changes. So, to maximize the fourth phase water you have in your body, there are a few things you can do. Most of them are free. In other words, it doesn't require much effort or much energy on your part. Some will require an expense of energy, time and money. Number one, to build easy water, you need the raw materials. Water, ordinary water, is the raw material for building easy water. Ordinary water consumed, in other words, drink more water. It's as simple as that. allows your body to have the raw material that it needs to convert the water that has just been consumed, ordinary water, to the EZ or fourth phase water inside the cells in the body. That's the first. The second, if you can, apply different ways to maximize the fourth phase water or EZ water you have in the body. One of those ways would be green juicing. So plants absorb infrared or incident radiation from the sun, and plants have very high concentration of EZ water. You find the fruit or the plant that has high concentration of water, cucumber, watermelon, lemons, cabbage. There are certain plants and fruits that have high concentration of water. For example, cucumber is almost 95% water. If you were to blend cucumber, you get a juice. That's called green juicing. If you were to squeeze lemon into a cup of water, you've taken the EZ water in the lemon and you can consume it, you can drink it. And that would be drinking EZ water. You're not requiring your body to convert, you're drinking EZ water directly. Number 3 is to go out and sit in the sun. Sunshine, a great source for infrared energy. Most of the energy we absorb from the sun is converted through the body, hits your brain and is converted into infrared energy. And that increases. The light coming in contact with the water in your cells increases the amount of fourth phase water you have. So get out there more often on a daily basis, as much as you can. You need light. Be with the sun. Be amongst the arrays of the energy from the sun. Embrace what the sun has to offer. Do it regularly during the day and allow your body to do what it does best. Our bodies function in a similar manner to plants. We're not photosynthesizing, but we are converting radiant energy into energy the body needs. Number 3 or number 4, perhaps number 4, I can't remember. Saunas, heat, or heat therapies. Saunas, steam room, hot baths are all very essential if you want to build fourth phase water. I recommended in sessions prior that if you feel depressed, if you feel anxious, go into a sauna for 15 minutes. And what tends to happen is almost miraculous. You walk out and sometimes it's instantaneous. You feel great. And some other times you feel tired. But that's because the body is then looking to repair. So it's coordinated towards having a good night's sleep. And once you wake up the next morning, you feel fabulous. Reason? The heat is converted to infrared energy in the body, and that increases the fourth phase water you have and helps for healing and repair of your cells. For people who have heart issues or heart conditions, it's fabulous. The heart functions as a pump. It's responsible for pumping blood through the blood vessels. We have blood vessels that are narrow, and we have blood vessels that are, you might say, wider. For the smaller blood vessels, what the research has found is, for example, your red blood cells are between 5 and 7, or sometimes between 5 and 9, sometimes between 5 and 10 micrometers in diameter. But the capillaries, which is where the cells have to flow through, are about half the size, between 4 and 6. And therefore you have a problem. How is it possible that this huge blood cells have to pass through a small orifice? The calculation that has been done suggests that the heart will require at least 1 million times more pumping power to get the blood cells through the smaller capillaries. And a lot of research has been done to find actually that what supports the heart is light, energy, infrared energy. Coming in contact with the body allows the body to become a battery by virtue of the fact that there's a charge separation that occurs when light comes in contact with the water in the body, one hydrogen molecule is excluded. As more light comes in, that exclusion zone increases and more hydrogen molecules are excluded even more. As you drink more raw water, more are excluded. So what you have is H2O in its original form split into OH and H. H is positive, OH is negative. It's pushed to one corner, H, and on the other corner you have OH. So you have two charged areas that are separated by a zone, positive and negative. That's a battery. And therefore the body can generate energy by virtue of the fact that light coming in contact with the body, or infrared energy, or the charge required, is creating a battery-like effect that allows the body to function in an optimal state. So the circulation of blood through the body is done by virtue of the heart, but also by light. And it does that because the cells, especially in the muscles, also the cells of the red blood cells, are able to change shape and move by virtue of the quality and the quantity of fourth phase water around it. In a natural position, when the muscles are not contracted, you might find the cells of the muscles are straight. But as you contract your muscles, if you have the right fourth phase water, you find the cells can move. And therefore, through the capillaries, you have something like a suction motion where the water is, by virtue of the light and by virtue of the fourth phase water or the exclusion zone water you have in your body, allows a suction whereby a red blood cell that is, say, 10 micrometers in diameter can pass through some place like a capillary that has a diameter of about 4.5 or 5. So it's like a miracle. The point of this is to say, if you have any ailments, heart issues, or a sense of dementia, diabetes, all of these illnesses are simply a function of certain parts of our cells not functioning as they should. And some of these remedies I'm giving you can help you permanently repair dysfunctional cells. Another way is through what I call earthing. I've done that not long ago, roughly an hour or so ago. And that is, for many years, we were told the Earth is neutral. Well, it turns out that Earth is negatively charged. And one of the ways to build EZ water or fourth phase water is to walk barefoot out there in nature. Get to a beach, sit on the beach, lie on the beach, walk on the beach. Because the Earth is negatively charged, it passes all those electrons through your body and replaces either dead electron cells or vacant electron cells in the body, and therefore increases that exclusion zone and therefore allows your body to function much better. So earlier today, about an hour ago, I went down to the field, took off my shoes, and I simply walked. Why? As I walk, all of the sun that has been absorbed by the soil and the grass, I'm absorbing some of that energy and it's going straight into my body and it's putting my body in a negative state. And this is something I should emphasize. On the physical plane, the body is striving to be in a negative state. On a mental plane, the body should be, your mind should be striving to be in a positive state. Both states are not contradictory. So the cells, 60%, the extracellular sections of the body, 20%, that's 80. You sweat, you exhale, and you urinate, and you exclude protons. But if you then charge the body through the soil, through the earth, with electrons, you also boost the negative charge of the body, which boosts the fourth phase water and quality of the fourth phase water in the body. So walking barefoot is important. Do it regularly, do it daily. If you cannot walk, sit outside on a sunny day or any time of the day and just sit barefoot. Read a paper and allow your body to absorb the free energy from the sun through the earth. Now, another way of maximizing or increasing your fourth phase water is by using things such as turmeric. Now, we have turmeric receptors in our body, so when we take turmeric, in a turmeric water, we fire on those receptors, and those receptors help us produce fourth phase water. ghee, coconut oil, coconut water. All of these things promote and expand and build fourth phase water or EZ water in the body. Now, interestingly, if you think about what I shared before about sauna, steam rooms or baths, these and the heat create fourth phase water by virtue of infrared, because some of that heat is converted to infrared energy, and therefore it goes through the tissues in the body and therefore expands the fourth phase water, and therefore we have in abundance. Now, the opposite of that is cold plunges. Think about this as I started this session. We know 3 phases. I have introduced a 4th phase, not my concept, Dr. Gerald Pollack, which he learned from someone else, Mr. Ling, but also Sir William Hardy, postulates that in between the solid phase and the liquid phase is an intermediary phase, like a gel-like phase. Now, what this simply means is that whilst you can increase your 4th phase water by exposure to the sun, you're technically going from liquid and you're moving towards the intermediate phase, which is the structured water, gel-like water. And that would get you what you want. But also, you can actually come from the cold, which is the solid phase, and allow the water, as the water moves from solid to liquid, it has to go through the intermediate phase also. So those who go, who are interested in cold plunges, and I recommend this for those who suffer from depression or anxiety, cold dips, cold plunges, swim in a lake, it's incredible. I actually believe that if you suffer from depression, I will put this to you and I would challenge anybody to this test, and I will stake a significant amount, that if I went with you every day, because I do this every day, and I did a cold plunge every day. For some people, you may not be able to do this depending on where you live, but for most people, like in the UK, perhaps excluding the big cities, we have seasons. We are just coming into spring, and then there'll be summer, then we have autumn, and we have winter. But generally speaking, the ambient temperature starts to drop late in the autumn and stays low through the winter and right up until the start and middle of spring. And therefore, we usually have about 6 months of generally cool water. So if you can find a stream, a body of water, a lake, a sea, somewhere you can actually immerse yourself, or you can actually make your own cold dips. Even having a cold shower is just as good. And what happens is, as you go through a cold plunge, because of how cold the water is, the infrared in your body prior to you getting into the cold water moves towards the source of the cold. And in moving from inside of you through your tissues, it comes in contact with the water that is already in you, and that infrared energy helps expand your easy water. Fascinating. So cold plunges promote and assist in the creation of 4th phase water. Now, I'm not sure if I've covered everything that I should, but I think about 7 or 8 items that I have mentioned. I'm just thinking as to whether there is something else that I should have mentioned. Yeah, there is one. Controversial, but still worthy of paying attention to. Most people are familiar with CBD or THC. The data and the research suggests that they actually help promote 4th phase water. I don't know how, but let's just suffice it to say that if you don't go through the process of smoking, but instead go through the process of sublingually consuming it, if you consume it, it makes a huge difference. And part of that reason could be perhaps the fact that it reduces inflammation in the body. Now, let me bring this to a close, but let me summarize. Depression can be physical, or it can start on the physical. And if untreated, if something's happening to you physically in this world of Caesar that we live in, then it plays in your mind regularly, and sometimes the negative part of that program lingers on for longer, and suddenly we have a mental issue. This is not to suggest that there aren't serious mental issues like psychosis and the likes, but I started with the physical for a reason. It's something that we all can do something about. If you're a poor person, and most people always have a reason, most poor people would say, and I don't use this in a pejorative way, but most poor people will come up with the excuse to say, I cannot afford it. I think about half of the ideas I shared in regards to maximizing your fourth phase water production are free. The sun is free. Walking barefoot is free. Green juicing has a cost, but it's free. Get free fruits. Go for a walk and find oranges and apples, if that's all you can get. Ideally cucumber, because they have low sugar content. That's also free. Allow yourself, if you can, have a bath at least once a week. I won't call that free, but in principle, if it's within your ability, then it's not as expensive. Now, there was a concept that I didn't mention that perhaps I should, which is actually oxygen therapy. And this is how some people, those who have means, achieving incredible advantages over people who cannot. But everything I shared so far is just as effective. Oxygen has a negative charge, and therefore if you provide oxygen into the body, recognizing that if you have H2O, what you're saying effectively is you have ordinary water, which is random, and which stays in a random state, and you have to introduce order through light in order to take care of the chaos which is in ordinary water, because it's random and the molecules bounce up and down. And by introducing that order through light, you have what we call structured water, gel-like water. If you take in oxygen, you increase fourth phase water by virtue of the fact that you place the body in a negative charge. The NHS has on its website, if you just search oxygen therapy NHS, you find a section of the website which explains how it works. Some people use oxygen chambers, which is a chamber where oxygen is pumped into the chamber, and you inhale oxygen, and it's, oxygen is filled in the space, and therefore through your pores, the pores in your body, and through several parts of your body, your body is immersed in more oxygen than you would normally get just being out there. But the second way is through what we call bulk oxygen cylinders, or smaller oxygen cylinders. And this is where a small cylinder, perhaps 2 kilograms of oxygen, comes with a face mask, and you breathe in. And on the NHS's website, they provide you with sources of where and how to source oxygen in a careful manner and in a safe manner. But more importantly, they even inform you on the procedure so that you can do it at home yourself. Oxygen is not that expensive. Most people can actually afford it. Now, what is fascinating is the medical profession have actually stated that they are using oxygen to cure cancer or to reduce the growth of cancer. It's been used for several ailments: dementia, diabetes, asthma, just name it. Reason? Oxygen is negatively charged. The body is always striving to be in a negative charge state. And if you are in a less negative charge state, you're not optimal form. And therefore, by introducing oxygen, you charge the body, exclusion zone water is produced, you have more fourth phase, and therefore your cells are then optimized and they're functioning as they should. I started this series of sessions, and my hope was that I could provide some value. I think I have come to the end of the physical side, and in the sessions that follow, I will move to the mental side with regards to depression. And I hope the 33 sessions so far have been of some value. God bless.